At 2:30 a.m. the world smelled like rot and rain. Floodlights from the landfill's edge shivered through mist as a black SUV rolled to a stop beside a leaning mountain of trash. The engine cut. Doors opened. Two shadows stepped out, her husband's mother in a head wrap and wrapper skirt, and his father in a dark coat. They didn't speak her name. They didn't ask if she was cold. They only told her to hurry. Move, the mother-in-law hissed, fingers hard on her arm. Her bare feet sank into wet grit. She clutched the thin shawl around her shoulders. The wind stung. Somewhere far inside the dump, a machine groaned and the metal ribs of the night creaked. She was small in that hour, small and shaking, but her eyes were clear. "Please," she said. "Mrs. Kalu. Mr. Kalu, can we talk?" "There is nothing to talk," his mother snapped. "You will not destroy our son's future." His father didn't meet her eyes. He kept looking at his watch like he was paying a bill. "We warned you," he muttered. They led her beyond the gravel path to a clearing where torn plastic fluttered like dull birds. The air had a taste, old fruit oil rain. The mother-in-law pushed and the young woman, Nia, stumbled. She fell to one knee, palms in cold mud, breath hitching. Her shawl slid, and the thin gold chain at her neck flashed in the light. "This is wicked," Nia whispered. His mother's chin lifted. "What you call wicked, others call order." They turned their backs and walked away. The car doors slammed. The engine coughed. Tires spat gravel. As the SUV swung around, its headlights washed over Nia's face, round, brown, damp with rain. For a second, the mother-in-law looked straight at her through the glass. No softening. No mercy. The SUV vanished into darkness, taillights blinking once like a warning. Silence came down heavy. Nia wrapped her shawl tighter and stood. Her hands shook, but she breathed slow, in and out, the way her mother taught her when thunder rolled in off the gulf and the house felt too small. "You are still here," Mama would say. "If you can hear your breath, you are still here." Nia listened. She was still here. A gull screeched. Far off, a front loader beeped. The mist thinned and she noticed something new, a red light high on a pole, blinking. Not a hazard light. A camera. Then another and another, like a row of watchful eyes along the fence. The landfill wasn't sleeping. Her mind moved fast. She wiped her palms on the shawl, took cautious steps back toward the gravel, scanning for broken glass. She wasn't going to make noise. She wasn't going to panic. She had a phone, but her husband, Darius, had taken it before dinner, saying he'd update something for her. He never came back to the table. Hours later, his parents came instead. "Come," his mother had said, tight smile, fake gentle. "We need to talk. Family matter." They drove and drove, away from the bright places, away from the police station, away from the neighbor who always watched. They drove like secrets. Now, in the trash yard, rain found the bruised place on Nia's arm where the mother-in-law had gripped too hard. She winced. She looked back at the red blinking light. The camera faced the clearing. It had seen everything. She almost laughed. "Thank you," she whispered, "to God, to fate, to whatever kept the lens turned on at this hour." A horn blared at the gate. Metal clanged. Nia ducked purely on instinct. She peered between stacked pallets and saw the entrance, a high chain-link fence crowned with concertina wire. A sign hung on it, white letters bold even in the mist. City of River Oaks, Sanitation and Reclamation Center. Authorized entry only. 24/7 video recording. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Another line smaller. This facility operates under the Albright Green Initiative. Albright. The name struck like a bell. Her mother's maiden name. Her mother's nonprofit. Her mother's dream. Nia's throat tightened. She hadn't thought of the Albright Initiative since the funeral 2 years ago when the board split, when lawyers sent thick envelopes and Darius said, "Let them handle it, babe. It's not your battle." A truck rolled up to the gate. The security barrier didn't lift. Instead, the whole fence hummed and a sharp blue-white light flooded the entry lane. Nia flinched and lifted a hand to shield her eyes. The truck idled. A guard in a reflective vest climbed from a booth, talking into a radio. "Got movement on the south camera at 2:31, Nia heard him say. "Looks like a person." Her heart kicked. She glanced down. Mud smeared her legs. The shawl clung wet to her shoulders. She imagined how she looked on the screen, small and lost in a place built to swallow. The guard raised his voice, deep and careful. "Hey, if you can hear me, stay where you are. Do not move toward the equipment. Help is on the way." Nia's eyes stung. She swallowed tears. "I'm here," she called, voice thin. "Please, help." "Copy that," the guard said into the radio. Female. Alone. Alone. She wasn't supposed to be alone. She was supposed to be in bed on clean sheets, her husband's arm heavy and safe across her waist. She was supposed to be asleep in a home they'd saved for, painted together, blessed by both families in a mix of Yoruba prayers and soft church humming. She was supposed to be Mrs. Kalu, not a problem to be moved in the night. Her body remembered different nights, warmer ones, bright and loud. The first time she met Darius was at a Juneteenth block party on Alameda. He'd worn a white tee and a shy smile, and he danced like the music was a language he spoke all his life. He had Nigerian parents and a Houston heart. He was soft with her. He was patient with her grief after Mama's funeral. He prayed with her and laughed with her and held her when she doubted she could finish her nursing program. "We're a team," he'd say. "You and me. Always." But teams bend under weight. His parents didn't like that Nia came from a family of women who built things. They didn't like that the Albright Initiative's board kept mailing, asking Nia to choose a seat. They didn't like that her mother's small trust fund for community clean water had become a wedge in conversation, then a wall. When Nia suggested putting her name on their house deed to make both families feel secure, his mother smiled a tight smile and said, "You must not rush these matters." Darius said he'd handle it. He always said that. He said it when they delayed the church ceremony for his parents' sake. He said it when a rumor started that Nia couldn't have children. He said it when work pulled him later and later. He said he'd handle it, right up until tonight. The guard waved. Another figure in a vest jogged toward the clearing. "Ma'am," he called. "Do you need an ambulance?" I don't think I'm hurt," Nia whispered, though her skin throbbed where fingers had bit. "They left me." "Who left you?" "My husband's parents," she said, tasting the words as she spoke them, because truth has a strange taste the first time it hits the air. "They brought me here and left me." The guard stopped at the edge of the trash. Rain made freckles on his vest. He looked past Nia toward the dark road where the SUV had vanished. "Do you know why?" Nia opened her mouth to say she didn't. But she did know. She knew the way his mother's eyes hardened each time a letter came with the Albright seal. She knew how his father rubbed his temples whenever Nia asked if Darius had called the realtor, signed the bank forms, answered the lawyer. She knew how fear can make people do ugly arithmetic, subtract a person from a family to keep a story clean. Before she could shape the answer, headlights flared at the gate again, sharp, bouncing, urgent. Not one car. Several. Tires hissed on wet gravel. The guard turned, hand to his radio. The security arm didn't lift. The fence hummed louder. Cameras on the poles swiveled like metal heads. "Hold," the guard said softly into the dark. "Hold on." Through the glare, Nia made out the first vehicle. A city-marked SUV with the green leaf logo of the Albright Initiative on its door. Behind it, a sedan with something clipped to its dash, a blinking blue light. A third car eased up, heavy, black, windows tinted. The city SUV's driver's door opened. A woman stepped out, tall, wrapped in a raincoat, hair in a neat bun. She moved like someone who has walked into rooms where people expected her to be quiet and then spoke anyway. "Nia Albright?" the woman called, voice bright against the rain. "Are you Nia?" Nia's breath snagged on her mother's name. "Yes," she said. "I'm Nia." The woman's face broke in a quick, relief-lit smile. "I'm Deputy Director Wilson with the Albright Initiative. We've been trying to reach you for weeks. There was a vote tonight. It concerns you directly. We didn't expect." She stopped, taking in the scene. "Are you safe?" Nia nodded, then shook her head, confused by her own body. The sedan's blue light flashed twice, and a uniformed officer stepped out. He spoke to the guard in a low voice. The black SUV's engine hummed. It didn't park, it prowled. "Back the vehicles up," the officer called to his partner. "Keep the lane clear." The black SUV's engine cut. The rear door opened with an expensive, heavy silence. A foot stepped out, polished shoe flashing water. Then a second foot, in bright heels the color of ripe cherries. A figure climbed down, holding a small bundle like something newborn and breakable. The guard's eyes flicked to Nia. Deputy Wilson tipped her head, rain on her face. The officer's hand hovered near his radio. The person from the SUV stepped into the light. It was Darius. He wasn't alone. A woman leaned on his arm. She was pretty and tired and wrapped in a hospital blanket. In her hands she held a baby, tiny and wailing. The baby's cry lifted thin and sharp into the night, cutting through the hum of the fence and the drizzle and the low choke of the trucks. Darius looked at Nia, rain sliding down his cheeks like tears he hadn't earned. His mouth opened. Behind him, in the driver's seat of the black SUV, sat his mother, eyes wide for the first time that night, not with hardness but with something like fear. The officer took one step forward. Deputy Wilson took one step forward. The camera's red lights blinked in unison, a quiet chorus of witnesses. "Nia," Darius said, voice shaking. "Listen." And then the baby's face turned toward Nia, and in the floodlight she saw the curve of the mouth, the set of the eyes, the small, unmistakable dimple high on the left cheek. Her mother's dimple. The one Nia saw each time she looked in the mirror. The guard swore under his breath. The officer raised his palm. Darius's mother said, "No, no, no," like she could push the night back with her tongue. Nia took a slow breath, feeling the ground steady under her feet. "Whose child is that?" she asked, and the question fell into the rain like a stone, and nobody moved as the ripples ran outward. No one answered Nia's question. The rain held its breath. The baby hiccuped, that small desperate sound new lungs make. The woman beside Darius, she had cocoa-brown skin and braided extensions pulled into a messy bun, tightened the hospital blanket around the infant and glanced from Nia to Deputy Wilson to the flashing blue light on the sedan. Her eyes were swollen with the kind of tired that comes after too many hours under fluorescent lamps. Deputy Wilson spoke first, voice steady. "Let's move this conversation under shelter." She gestured to the guard shack just inside the gate, a metal room with a tin awning and a long bench. "Officer, can we secure the lane and bring them in?" The officer, nameplate reading Harris, studied the black SUV where Darius's mother sat rigid behind tinted glass. He snapped a few quiet instructions into his radio. The barrier arm lifted with a mechanical whine. The city SUV rolled forward to block the lane. The sedan angled behind it. The black SUV stayed put, engine off but tension humming like a string pulled too tight. Nia followed the guard toward the awning, her wet shawl clinging to her skin. Darius and the woman with the baby came too, steps slow, careful, like moving would break something invisible. Officer Harris stood between them and the exit. Under the awning, the guard handed Nia a dry towel. It smelled like old cotton and coffee. She wrapped it around her shoulders and willed her teeth to stop their small percussion. Deputy Wilson flicked water from her cuffs and turned to face the group. "My name is Naomi Wilson," she said. "I represent the Albright Initiative. Ms. Albright, Nia, we've been trying to reach you because of a decision the board made tonight." She took a breath. "Before we discuss that, Officer Harris needs to understand what happened here." Harris nodded. He was broad-shouldered and calm, the kind of person who makes rooms stop shaking by standing still. "Ma'am," he said to Nia, "you said your husband's parents brought you here and left you. Is that right?" "Yes," Nia said, her voice finding a firmer place to stand. "They drove me from our house. They said it was a family matter. When we got here they told me to get out. They pushed me. Then they drove away." "Time?" Harris asked the guard. 2:29 on South Cam, the guard answered, already tapping a monitor inside the booth. On the screen, grainy black and white footage blinked to life. A black SUV at the edge of the clearing, two figures, a smaller woman stumbling, the SUV pulling away. The camera's red LED blinked its quiet, stoic yes. Harris's jaw worked. He looked at Darius. "Sir?" Darius's voice came thin. I didn't know they would do that." From the SUV, his mother cracked the window and spoke into the night, words sharp enough to cut rain. "Enough. We are not criminals. She is unstable. She has been making trouble for months. We were removing a disturbance from our home." Harris's eyes didn't move. "Ma'am, stay in the vehicle. We'll come to you." Darius winced like the word we had splinters. The woman with the baby shifted from foot to foot. The infant's face scrunched, then unfurled. That tiny dimple deepened again, a signature on a letter Nia hadn't written but recognized. The woman's voice trembled when she spoke. "I'm Kira," she said, more to Nia than to anyone. "Kira Brooks. We met once at the clinic, but maybe you don't remember. I was a candidate." Nia's stomach dropped through the floor. "A candidate?" she repeated, though she already knew the language Kira was reaching for. Kira nodded, hair dripping. "For surrogacy," she whispered. "Last year. You and Darius had 2 embryos. The doctor said one was strong. I carried." She looked down at the baby. "He was born this evening. Early but healthy." For a second, the world narrowed to the space between Kira's hands and the baby's face. The dimple. The eyes. A nose shaped like the one in family photographs on Nia's grandmother's piano. The fog of the trash yard pressed in, the awning felt too low. "We never," Nia started then stopped. They had talked about it back when hope was a small candle they guarded carefully. After a year of quiet tears and awkward baby showers and the ache between prayers, they sat in a specialist's office with a view of a highway and listened to words like diminished reserve and retrieval and transfer. Darius held her hand so tightly she had to shake feeling back into her fingers later. They signed papers in a stack thick enough to tilt a table. They cried in the car and laughed in a parking lot at nothing, at everything. But then her mother died and letters from the initiative came, and the board fight swallowed whole days. Darius said they'd press pause. He said they'd wait until the house situation was sorted, until his parents were settled, until the rumor mill slowed. He said it like someone folding a blanket for later. "You told me you had your wife's consent," Kira said into the heavy quiet. "You said the lawyers had it and the clinic had it and your family would help with everything. I didn't meet you again because he said you were traveling to care for a relative. I didn't want drama. I just wanted to do right and give this child a safe start." Darius squeezed his eyes shut. "Kira." Officer Harris lifted a hand. "Sir, don't coach anyone. Ms. Brooks, you carried this child as a gestational surrogate? Under contract with whom?" Kira bit her lip. "The paperwork says Kalu Albright, LLC. She looked at Nia. "I thought that meant you. I thought it was both of you." Nia looked to Darius. "What did you sign?" she asked, and the softness in her voice had drained away, leaving bedrock. Darius couldn't hold her gaze. "I expedited," he said. "My parents said we needed to move before the board dragged you into months of court. We were going to surprise you. Babe, Nia, it was supposed to be a gift." Deputy Wilson let out a breath that sounded like a broken violin string. "Expedited?" she repeated. "With whose consent? Your wife's? The clinic requires both." "My mother handled it," Darius murmured. "She knows people." Rain rattled on the awning harder now. The guard booth hummed. On the monitor, the image of Nia stumbling in the mud replayed in a loop because the guard hadn't told it to stop. Harris radioed something short and toneless, then addressed the group, voice official. "We have potential criminal issues. Abandonment, unlawful restraint, possibly fraud if consents were forged. Nobody is under arrest at this second, but nobody is leaving. Ma'am," he glanced toward the SUV, "I need you to power down the vehicle and remain inside. Sir," to Darius, "you and Ms. Brooks will stay right here." Darius's mother's voice volleyed back across the wet. "Officer, you will regret this. You do not know who we are." Deputy Wilson's mouth twitched, not in a smile, but in something like disbelief curdling into resolve. "Oh, I know who you are," she said softly. "And I know whose ground you chose to use for your work tonight." Nia looked at her. "What did the board decide?" she asked because she needed a foothold that wasn't made of things that break. Wilson met her eyes. "At 11:47 p.m., the Albright board voted to seat you as chair," she said. "Effective immediately. Your mother named you a successor. The attorney finally found the notarized letter your mother wrote the week before she passed." Wilson tapped the city SUV's door, where the green leaf logo glowed damply. "This facility is under our contract. The cameras you noticed aren't just recording, they're live-linked to our compliance servers. When the south camera flagged human movement at 2:31, an alert pinged my phone." She glanced down at the infant. "We also had an alert from a different system at 9:12 p.m., a neonatal ward sound profile. A baby crying tagged to a Kalu Albright file." She looked at Darius like a teacher looking at a student who had gambled that no one would check the syllabus. "2 alerts. One night. One name. I came." Darius sagged against the wall. "I was trying to fix it," he whispered. "I was trying to make everyone happy. My parents said if we had a child they would calm down, they would accept. They said the board would look at you differently if we had. If I had an heir?" Nia asked, and the word tasted like iron. He winced. "It wasn't like that." "It is precisely like that," his mother called from the SUV, because she didn't know when silence could save a life. "We did what families must do. We protected our son. We protected the Kalu name." Officer Harris moved toward the SUV then, gesturing for another unit that had ghosted up the lane with its lights low. "Ma'am, step out of the vehicle," he said, and the way he said ma'am carried a county's worth of patience. Darius's father climbed out first, hands visible, face drained of all the heat it had carried earlier. He kept looking at the camera poles like they were spears pointed down from a high wall. Darius's mother followed, chin set. She held a leather folder under one arm like a shield. Kira rocked the baby gently. The infant's cries softened to hiccups, then to the soft little breaths that make grown hearts go quiet. She looked at Nia, and her voice turned small enough to slip under the official tone of the night. "He looks like you," she said. "I noticed it the minute they put him on my chest. That little cheek." Nia reached out without meaning to, and Kira, without waiting for permission that shouldn't have needed to be asked, let Nia's fingertip touch the baby's palm. The fist closed, warm and startlingly strong. Nia felt something open in her chest, a careful box her grief had nailed shut when her mother died and months passed with negative tests and well-meant advice that tasted like chalk. Officer Harris faced Nia. "Ms. Albright, do you want medical evaluation? We can get a paramedic to look at your arm. We can also transport you to the station to make a recorded statement." Nia looked at the looping video on the guard's monitor and then at the baby. "I want the footage preserved," she said. "I want a copy. And," she added, surprising even herself with how clear her voice sounded, "I want to file charges." Darius's mother made a sound like a hiss and a gasp braided together. "You will punish me for saving my family?" she asked the rain. "You punished me for joining mine," Nia said, not to win an argument but to burn a truth into the air so it couldn't be erased by morning. Deputy Wilson broke the moment with the kind of timing that comes from years of rooms like this. "There's one more thing," she said to Nia. "The board didn't just seat you as chair. They voted to unfreeze your mother's community trust. The first disbursement was structured to clear the land titles on 3 sanitation projects." She gestured around them. "Starting here. The contract currently sits with Kalu Waste Management, pending ethics review. As chair, you have the authority to approve or revoke." Darius's father closed his eyes like the night had hit him in the chest. Darius whispered, "Dad?" Officer Harris's radio chirped, a crisp little sound too clean for the trash yard. He listened, answered, then stepped toward the SUV. "Ma'am, sir," he said to Darius's parents, "you are being detained for questioning regarding suspected abandonment and endangerment." He turned to Darius. "Sir, you'll need to come as well." Darius took a half step forward, palms out. "Please," he said to Nia. "Please don't do this. We can talk at home." "We can." "We will talk," Nia said. "At a table with lights and a camera and a recorder." He flinched like the word camera stung. And then, as if the night decided it had one last cruel hand to play, the guard's second monitor blinked. A new window popped open uninvited, logos and hearts scrolling too fast to read. The guard frowned, clicked, then swore. "What is it?" Officer Harris asked. The guard swallowed. "Southcam livestream," he said slowly. "It pushed to our public transparency portal when the alert triggered. It's mirrored to social for accountability. We set that up after the protest last spring." He looked at the screen again and the color drained from his face. "There are 27,000 viewers? No, 31, comments are, it's everywhere." He turned the screen slightly despite himself. Nia saw herself on the feed, small under the awning, towel around her shoulders, finger wrapped in a baby's fist. She saw Darius's mother glaring at the lens like it had personally betrayed her. She saw the black SUV. She saw the caption the auto tag had given the stream. Albright Green, After Hours Incident, Community Oversight Live. In the corner, a chat box poured out in relentless white. "Is that a landfill? / Who are they? / She looks hurt. / Why is there a baby? / Lord not at 2:30 a.m. / Tag the news." Darius's mother reached for the leather folder, as if papers could stop water. Darius swayed, then put a hand on the wall. Kira held the baby tighter, eyes wide. Deputy Wilson straightened, every inch of her suddenly visibly on record. Officer Harris's face set into the expression of a man who knows whatever he does next will be replayed in 1,000 kitchens by breakfast. Nia didn't look away from the screen. She lifted her chin just enough to draw a new line across her life. "Officer," she said, voice low but carrying, "I am ready to give my statement." And as the first distant siren bled into the night and the comment counter jumped again, the baby opened his mouth and wailed, a bright, insistent sound, and Darius's mother lurched toward Kira in a flash of red and leather, fingers reaching, a word ripping from her throat. "Mine." Officer Harris moved before the word even finished leaving her mouth. "Step back, ma'am," he barked, intercepting Darius's mother just as her hand lunged for the baby. Her fingers grazed the edge of the hospital blanket, but Kira turned away, shielding the infant against her chest. Harris caught Mrs. Kalu's wrist mid-swing, firm but not violent. "Do not touch that child again," he said. For a heartbeat, everything froze, the rain, the guards, even the sirens. Then Darius's mother broke the silence with a furious sob, her composure cracking like thin glass. "That child is my blood. My grandson," she screamed. Harris's expression didn't flicker. Then you'd better start showing it. He signaled to 2 patrol officers who had just arrived, blue lights reflecting off the wet ground. Detain her, he ordered quietly. We'll sort the details at the station. Mrs. Kalu fought the cuffs as they clicked shut, shouting names of lawyers, family connections, and politicians. None of it mattered. The camera poles caught every word. Darius stood by the wall, drenched, whispering, "Mom, stop, please stop." When the officers led her away toward the patrol car, her husband followed in stunned silence. The scene emptied, leaving behind only the sound of rain tapping metal and the thin cry of the baby. Nia pressed the towel tighter around her shoulders. Every nerve in her body felt like it was learning how to breathe again. Deputy Wilson turned to her. "We should get you indoors," she said softly. "The initiative has a field office downtown. We can take your statement there, and there's a nurse on site." Nia nodded, still staring at the baby. He's really mine?" she asked, her voice trembling between fear and awe. Kira stepped closer, eyes full of something that wasn't pity but deep recognition. "He has your eyes," she said gently. "And your mother's dimple. I felt something was wrong the moment they took him from the delivery ward. They said you'd signed off on everything, that you couldn't come because of a family emergency. But when they didn't give me my discharge papers, I knew." Nia blinked. "So they tried to cover it up," Wilson finished. "We've seen tactics like this before in family inheritance cases. If that baby was registered under the Kalu name alone, your legal rights and control over the trust would shift to them. They weren't just trying to erase you tonight, Nia. They were trying to erase every trace of your mother's legacy." The realization hit like thunder. Nia's knees wobbled. "They wanted me gone before anyone knew," she whispered. "Dumped like trash so no one could question where I went." Wilson nodded grimly. "But the landfill cameras caught everything. And that live stream." She gestured toward the glowing monitor. "It's proof. Thousands of people saw them abandon you. The narrative's already out there." Darius finally spoke, voice broken. "Nia, I swear I didn't know they'd go that far. I wanted to protect you." "Protect me?" she cut in, her tone suddenly sharp. "From what? My own life? My own child? You watched them drag me out of the house and didn't stop them." His eyes glistened. "They told me you were hysterical, that you'd threaten them. That if I didn't let them handle it, you'd destroy everything we built. I believed them. I thought they were saving us." Nia stared at him, disbelief plain. "Saving us?" she repeated. "They nearly buried me." A crack of thunder rolled across the horizon. The baby stirred, letting out a faint cry. Nia instinctively reached for him, and Kira, without hesitation, placed the child in her arms. The moment his small body settled against her chest, something inside her steadied. The warmth, the heartbeat, the tiny fingers curling into her shawl. He was real, living proof that all their cruelty hadn't ended her story. Officer Harris gave her a respectful nod. "Ms. Albright, we'll need you to come downtown once you're ready. We'll have an officer escort you." Deputy Wilson's radio buzzed. "Copy," she said into it. "Yes, we're moving out now." She turned to Nia again. "You'll be safe with us. The initiative has full jurisdiction over this property, and with that footage there's no way they can bury what happened. You understand?" Nia nodded slowly. "I do." Kira brushed her hair back, exhausted. "I need to check back in with the hospital, but I'll testify if you need me," she said. "Everything I saw. Everything they told me." "Thank you," Nia said quietly. "You didn't have to, but you did." "I had to," Kira replied. "You didn't deserve this." As the guards opened the main gate, the small convoy started to move, Deputy Wilson's SUV in front, the police sedan following. Darius tried to walk beside Nia, but Officer Harris stepped between them. "Not tonight," he said firmly. Darius's shoulders sagged. "Please just tell me what happens now." Nia's voice was calm, colder than the rain. "Now, I take back what's mine. My name. My mother's legacy. My peace." He opened his mouth to say something, but she turned away, stepping into the back of the initiative's SUV with the baby nestled against her. The door closed, separating them for good. The drive back toward the city was long and silent. Rain smeared the windows, neon lights from gas stations and warehouses sliding past like ghosts. The baby slept, small chest rising and falling against her arm. Wilson drove, eyes on the slick road. "You know," she said after a while, "your mother once told me something. When they try to bury you," she said, "remember that the earth also grows things." Nia turned her gaze toward the window. "She really said that?" "She did," Wilson smiled faintly. Guess she knew her daughter would need it one day. For the first time that night, Nia let herself breathe deeply. The landfill was behind her now, but the weight of what had happened hadn't left. She thought of Darius's mother's words, the fear in Darius's face, the baby's cry. Then Wilson's phone rang. She put it on speaker. A man's voice came through, urgent. Naomi, it's Control. We've got a situation. The live stream was shared by 3 major outlets. Someone's claiming the Caloos run illegal waste contracts under Albright funding. The city's environmental board is calling for an emergency review. Wilson frowned. Copy that. Keep the servers locked. Nothing goes offline until we finish statements. Understood, the voice replied. The call ended, but the meaning lingered. The dump wasn't just a dump, it was part of the same network Nia's mother had built to clean up the city. And now, that network was tangled with corruption and greed from the people who tried to erase her. By the time they reached downtown, dawn was stretching pale fingers across the horizon. The city lights blinked out one by one. At the initiative's headquarters, a tall glass building overlooking the river, Nia stepped out of the SUV. The air smelled like wet concrete and morning. Reporters had already gathered outside the gate, camera flashes slicing through the drizzle. Wilson put a hand on her shoulder. We'll protect your privacy as much as possible, she said. But the truth's already out. The people saw everything. You're not invisible anymore. Nia squared her shoulders, adjusting the baby in her arms. Good, she said softly. Let them see. As they walked toward the doors, a shout rose from the small crowd. Is it true, ma'am? Did your husband's family abandon you? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The glass doors closed behind her with a quiet hiss. Inside, light flooded the lobby, a clean, white light, nothing like the landfill's yellow haze. The receptionist looked up, startled, then smiled in recognition. Ms. Albright, she said. Welcome home. The words echoed in Nia's chest long after they entered the elevator. She held her baby closer and whispered, barely above a breath, We're safe now. But as the elevator doors slid shut, the receptionist's phone began to ring again, shrill, urgent, persistent. And on the security monitor beside the desk, a new notification flashed across the screen. Unknown vehicle approaching. Unauthorized access attempt at the west gate. Wilson saw it just before the doors sealed. Her eyes met Nia's reflection in the mirrored wall. Don't worry, Wilson said, though her tone wasn't as steady as before. You're safe here. But the faint tremor in her voice, and the way the baby suddenly stirred in Nia's arms, told another story entirely. The night's danger hadn't been buried in the trash yard after all. Something or someone was coming for them. The elevator doors opened to the quiet hum of the Albright Initiative's top floor. It was sleek, all glass walls and white marble floors glistening under soft morning light. Everything smelled faintly of disinfectant and rain. But the silence felt wrong, too heavy, too still. Deputy Wilson's eyes darted around. Security should have been here, she muttered. They always have 2 guards posted near the elevator by this hour. Nia adjusted the baby in her arms. Maybe they're downstairs, she said quietly. Wilson pressed her ID against the scanner. The office lights flickered on, one by one, revealing rows of workstations, screensavers glowing with the green leaf logo of the initiative. It looked ordinary, too ordinary. Then from the far end of the hallway a sound, the faint shuffle of a chair. Hello? Wilson called. No answer. She gestured for Nia to stay back and stepped forward, her shoes clicking on the floor. Security, it's Deputy Wilson. When she reached the conference room door, she stopped. Through the glass wall, they could see a man slumped over the meeting table, his headset still on. A coffee cup lay on its side, its contents pooling near his arm. Wilson's breath caught. She hurried inside, checking for a pulse. After a few tense seconds, she exhaled in relief. He's alive. Looks like he fainted. What happened? Nia asked, clutching the baby tighter. Wilson lifted the headset from the man's ears. It's white noise, she murmured, frowning. Something scrambled the channel. This is our comm line to the data center. Someone's been tampering with it. She picked up the office phone, dialed an internal code, and froze when she heard the result. Only static. Nia felt her heart begin to race. You said we were safe here. Wilson met her eyes, grim. We are. But someone's trying to make sure we stay blind for a while. Before Nia could respond, the intercom crackled. Deputy Wilson, a male voice drawled through the speakers, smooth and unfamiliar. You've made quite an entrance tonight. Cameras, police, public streams. Impressive. Wilson's face went pale. Who is this? She demanded. The voice chuckled. You already know who. I represent interests, let's say aligned with the Kalu family. You've caused a great deal of embarrassment, but it's not too late to clean up this little mess, if everyone cooperates. Nia stepped forward, anger flashing through her exhaustion. Embarrassment? She snapped. They left me in a trash yard. They tried to steal my child. The voice paused, then replied, mockingly polite, and yet here you are, safe and alive. You should be thanking them, not ruining their legacy on a live stream. Wilson slammed the intercom button. Listen to me. Whoever you are, I've already reported everything to the city task force. The footage is public. There's no covering this up. The voice went quiet for a moment. Then it said with chilling calm, Are you sure about that? At that exact moment, every monitor in the office flickered. The Albright logo vanished, replaced by a flashing red warning. Server breach detected. Data connection lost. Wilson cursed under her breath. They're wiping it. They're trying to delete the footage. Nia felt her stomach twist. Can they do that? Not easily, Wilson replied, typing rapidly on a nearby console. But if they get into the backup nodes, it could all disappear. The video, the contracts, your mother's letter. Everything. The intercom hissed again. You see, deputy? We don't need to hurt anyone. We just rewrite the story. A glitch. A misunderstanding. No one will believe a word you say once the evidence is gone. Wilson's fingers flew over the keyboard. Not if I reroute through the emergency uplink. The voice's tone shifted, amused. Ah, but that requires the Westgate access code, doesn't it? Wilson froze. How do you know that? A low laugh echoed through the room. Because I built this system. For your board. Before your precious Nia Albright was even aware of what power she was inheriting. Then the line went dead. Nia felt the world tilt slightly. They're inside the building, she whispered. Aren't they? Wilson didn't answer immediately. She looked toward the security camera in the corner, its red light blinking. Maybe. Or maybe they're watching through those. The baby stirred in Nia's arms and began to cry softly. She rocked him gently, trying to calm both him and herself. Wilson, she said, voice trembling, what do we do? Wilson took a deep breath, thinking fast. There's a server vault in the basement. The physical drives. If we can reach it and disconnect them manually, they can't overwrite the data remotely. You mean, go down there? Yes. Nia looked toward the dark hallway. But you said they might already be inside. Wilson met her gaze. Then we don't have time to be scared. She opened a drawer, pulled out a flashlight and a small keycard. Stay close to me. Don't let go of the baby no matter what happens. They stepped into the elevator. The ride down was long, the silence broken only by the hum of descending machinery. Nia's heart pounded. Every flicker of the lights made her flinch. When the doors finally opened, the basement greeted them with cold air and a low hum from the generators. The floor was concrete, the walls lined with metal cabinets. The vault room was just ahead, behind a steel door marked Data Core, authorized staff only. Wilson swiped her card, but the light blinked red. They've changed the access key. Can't you override it? Not from here. But, Wilson glanced at a maintenance panel on the wall. If we cut the auxiliary power, the locks will release. She found the switch, hesitated only a moment and pulled it. The entire corridor went dark. The baby whimpered. And then, from somewhere behind them, a soft, deliberate footstep echoed. Wilson froze. Did you hear that? Another step. Closer this time. Nia's breath caught in her throat. Someone's down here. A shadow moved at the far end of the hallway, tall and slow. Then a voice drifted through the dark. Deputy Wilson. Ms. Albright. Going somewhere? It was Darius. He stepped into the faint light from Wilson's flashlight beam, his face pale and hollow. His once pristine shirt was torn at the sleeve, and there was a desperate edge in his eyes. Darius. Nia whispered. How did you? You were supposed to be at the station. They let me go, he said quickly, raising his hands. They said there was a misunderstanding. I just came to find you. Please listen to me. Wilson didn't lower the flashlight. The police wouldn't release you that fast. Not in a case like this. Darius shook his head. They had no grounds to hold me. My parents, they have lawyers, friends in high places. I just need to talk to Nia, alone. Not a chance, Wilson said firmly. He took a small step forward. Nia, you have to believe me. I didn't know they'd hurt you. I came to fix this. She stared at him, trembling, torn between fury and grief. You said that before. When they took me. When they lied. Every time you said you'd fix it. But you never did. He swallowed hard. I can fix it now. Please, give me the baby. Wilson stepped in front of Nia, blocking his path. You need to stop right there. His voice broke. He's my son. Not tonight he isn't, Wilson said sharply. Not until the law says so. For a long moment, Darius just stood there, eyes darting between them. Then his jaw clenched. You'll regret this, he whispered. He turned and stormed down the hall, disappearing into the shadows. Wilson let out a shaky breath. We need to move. Now. They pushed open the data vault door manually. Inside, rows of humming servers blinked blue and green. Wilson crossed the room, found the main switch, and shut down the network one bank at a time. As the final server powered down, the air seemed to lift, like the building itself had exhaled. Nia sank into a chair, rocking the baby gently. Is it over? She asked. Wilson looked toward the ceiling where the security camera's red light had gone dark. For now, she said. But if he's here, that means his parents aren't the only ones who wanted this buried. Nia looked down at her child's peaceful face, then back at Wilson. Then we fight, she said quietly. For him. For my mother. For the truth. Wilson nodded slowly. Then we start by making the world listen. She turned toward the stairwell that led back up to the lobby, but before she reached it, another noise echoed through the dark basement. This time it wasn't footsteps. It was the sound of metal clattering, something heavy falling onto concrete, and then a faint mechanical hiss, like air escaping from a valve. Wilson spun around, flashlight trembling. What was that? Nia clutched the baby to her chest. Wilson, what's happening? A small red light blinked near the far wall. A smoke canister rolled from beneath one of the shelves. Wilson's eyes widened. Get down, she yelled. The canister burst, filling the room with a thick white fog. Nia coughed, pulling the baby close as Wilson dragged her behind a cabinet. Above the roar of the smoke, a voice echoed through the basement, low, distorted, and calm. You should have stayed quiet, Nia. Some secrets aren't meant to survive the night. And then silence. Comment your thoughts below and tell us where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more gripping African folktale stories like this one. The fog swallowed everything. It was thick, acrid, burning Nia's throat, stinging her eyes. She couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Her arms tightened instinctively around the baby, who had started crying again, his tiny wails muffled against her chest. Wilson, she coughed. Where are you? Here, came the faint reply. The deputy's voice was low but steady, coming from somewhere to her left. Stay down, Nia. Don't move toward the open space. They could be watching the entrance. Nia crouched behind a server rack, heart hammering. The fluorescent light strips above flickered through the haze, making ghostly shapes out of the smoke. She heard the faint buzz of electricity, then footsteps. Slow, deliberate boots against concrete. Someone was down there with them. Wilson crawled closer, her flashlight beams slicing through the smoke for an instant. We have to reach the emergency hatch, she whispered. It leads up to the maintenance corridor. It's only 30 feet away, but if they see us. A metallic clang cut her off. Something, or someone, had kicked the door shut behind them. Then a male voice, deep and eerily calm, drifted through the fog. I told you, deputy. You shouldn't have meddled in family affairs. It wasn't Darius. The tone was colder, older. Wilson's eyes widened. She recognized it instantly. Mr. Kalu, she hissed. You were arrested. A dark laugh echoed from the other end of the room. Arrested, yes, but never charged. Money buys time, Ms. Wilson. And time is all I needed. Nia pressed a hand over her mouth, holding her breath. The baby's soft cries quivered in her arms. You don't have to do this, Wilson called, her voice rising. Everything's public now. The whole city saw what happened at the landfill. If you hurt us, there's no covering it up. Mr. Kalu's footsteps stopped. That footage, he said with a quiet chuckle. It's gone. Deleted from every feed before sunrise. And the servers here, he gestured somewhere unseen in the haze. Well, you've already helped by turning them off. Thank you for that. Wilson cursed under her breath. He continued, his tone smooth as oil. I built this empire, deputy. You think a young woman and a few viral clips can destroy it? You think the world cares about another scandal when the people at the top write the headlines? Nia's fear twisted into anger. She stood slowly, keeping the baby pressed against her shoulder. You left me to die, she said, voice trembling but strong. You called it order. You called it family honor. But what you really meant was power. There was silence for a moment, then his voice again, closer now. The lost daughter speaks. The beam of Wilson's flashlight flickered across the fog, catching the brief outline of a tall man in a dark overcoat. His face was hidden behind a black breathing mask. In his gloved hand, something metallic glinted, small, mechanical. Wilson recognized it instantly. "Gas trigger," she whispered. "Tear compound." "Step away from the door," Mr. Kalu commanded. "You don't want the child breathing this." Nia's pulse raced. She could barely see Wilson, but she heard her shifting behind the servers, trying to move closer. "Please," Nia said, voice trembling. "He's your grandson." The figure paused. "That boy carries my blood," he said softly. "But his mother has tainted the name that blood was meant to honor. You've turned my son against us. You've dragged our family through the dirt." "You did that yourself," she shot back. "You taught him lies and he believed them. But I won't let you ruin his life, or mine, any longer." Wilson's flashlight beam vanished and suddenly there was a dull clang, a sound of metal hitting metal. Sparks flashed. The sprinkler system exploded to life, spraying cold water across the room. Steam erupted where it hit the gas. The air hissed, clearing just enough for Wilson to shout, "Run, Nia! The hatch, go!" Nia didn't think. She bolted, shielding the baby beneath her shawl, slipping across the wet floor. Her bare feet slapped the concrete, water spraying around her. Behind her, Mr. Kalu roared, "Stop her!" But Wilson was already between them, swinging a metal wrench she'd grabbed from the maintenance rack. "You're not touching her," she spat. Nia reached the hatch, an old steel door at the end of the hall, half buried behind crates. She yanked the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "Lock." "No," she gasped, pulling again with all her strength. Then, from the other side, she heard the sound of bolts turning. Someone was unlocking it. The door swung open, flooding the space with pale morning light. A silhouette appeared. It was Officer Harris. "Nia, move," he shouted. She stumbled through the doorway, gasping, the baby still clutched tightly. Harris grabbed her arm and pulled her into the corridor. "Are you hurt?" "No, but Wilson." Behind them, a deafening crash echoed. Harris spun around just in time to see Wilson slam the wrench into the generator, sending sparks and smoke flying. Mr. Kalu staggered back, coughing violently. Then the emergency alarm blared. Red lights strobed through the hallway. Wilson emerged through the haze, coughing, soaked head to toe but alive. Harris caught her by the arm as she stumbled out, slamming the hatch shut behind them. "Backup's here," Harris said between breaths. "They surrounded the building 5 minutes ago. We tracked the SUV from the landfill. That man's not going anywhere." Through the thick metal door came the muffled pounding of fists, then silence. Nia leaned against the wall, trembling, tears mixing with the water dripping down her face. The baby quieted at last, pressing his cheek against her collarbone. Wilson coughed, catching her breath. "You okay?" "I think so," Nia whispered. But he said, "They deleted everything." Wilson managed a tired smile. "They deleted copies. Not the original. I backed up the live stream onto the cloud the moment it started. Every second of what they did to you is safe." Nia blinked in disbelief. "You?" "I told you," Wilson said, straightening. "We make the world listen." Harris nodded. "And the world is already watching. News outlets have the story. The mayor's office just called for a full investigation into Kalu Industries." The words hit Nia like light after a long night. Relief, exhaustion, and disbelief tangled together. "So it's over?" she asked softly. Wilson shook her head. "Not yet. But now, Nia, you have something they don't, truth on your side." Nia looked down at her child's face. The same dimple, the same eyes, the same quiet strength. "He'll never know what they tried to do," she murmured. "He'll grow up free." Wilson smiled faintly. "And maybe one day he'll read about it in a history book." Harris checked his watch. "We need to get you to a safe location. They'll want you both protected until the investigation is complete." Nia nodded slowly. "All right." They walked toward the stairwell, the alarms fading behind them, the first light of dawn spilling through the upper windows. The city was awake now, sirens, traffic, the hum of life continuing. But as they stepped into the open air, Nia felt something new in her chest, peace, fragile but real. She turned to Wilson. "Thank you," she said, "for believing me." Wilson shook her head. "You don't thank people for doing what's right." Harris led them toward a waiting patrol car. The morning breeze smelled like rain and iron, but it felt cleaner somehow. Lighter. Nia looked down at her baby and whispered, "We made it." But as the car door closed behind them, Wilson's phone buzzed with a new message from the forensics team. Her eyes narrowed as she read it aloud. Alert, Kalu matriarch released on bail. Unknown contact wired $500,000 through an offshore account. Destination, Lagos, Nigeria. Wilson glanced at Nia. Looks like the game isn't over yet. Nia's grip on her child tightened. Then I'll be ready when they come. The patrol car pulled away, red and blue lights reflecting in the glass towers. Somewhere far behind them, in the dark belly of the city, a man in an overcoat coughed through the remnants of gas and whispered to himself, "You can't bury what refuses to die, Nia. But I can still silence it." And in that moment, the real battle, the one for her freedom, her legacy and her family's name, had only just begun. By noon, the story had become a wildfire. Every major outlet had the headlines splashed across their screens. Billionaire family exposed for dumping daughter-in-law at trash site. Livestream footage sparks national outrage. Clips from the landfill streamed endlessly, Nia in the rain clutching her shawl, the baby's cry, the moment Darius's mother shouted, "Mine." It was everywhere, on TV, on phones, on billboards. But while the world watched, Nia sat in a quiet safe house on the outskirts of the city, the curtains drawn, the sound of distant reporters muffled by heavy walls. The room was small but clean. The faint smell of disinfectant mixed with the aroma of rice and stew from the kitchen. A nurse hired by the Albright Initiative checked on the baby, who was now peacefully asleep. Nia sat near the window, her face lit by the thin stripe of afternoon sunlight cutting through the blinds. She hadn't slept since the night before. Wilson entered with a tablet in her hand. Her blouse was wrinkled, her eyes tired. "You're officially the most searched name in the country," she said quietly. "Half the city wants to know your story. The other half is already calling you the trash yard survivor." Nia gave a faint, bitter laugh. "That's what I am now, huh? A headline." "Not just a headline," Wilson said, pulling up the tablet. "A symbol. The Albright board wants to hold a press conference tomorrow morning. They want you to take your mother's seat officially. In public." Nia hesitated. "After all this?" "That's exactly why," Wilson said. "People trust you now. They see what your family did to you. You've become the face of everything your mother stood for: resilience, justice, community." Nia looked down at her hands. "Justice." The word felt heavy. "And what happens to the Kalus?" Wilson sighed. "The father's been charged with endangerment, conspiracy, and corporate fraud. The mother was released on bail, but she's under surveillance. As for Darius," she paused. "He's gone silent. No contact. His phone's off. His lawyers claim he's cooperating, but no one's seen him since this morning." Nia's pulse quickened. "You think he ran?" Wilson met her eyes. "Maybe. Or maybe he's planning something." Before Nia could reply, the baby stirred. She lifted him gently, rocking him until his breathing steadied. His warmth was the only thing grounding her in that moment. Wilson stepped closer. "Do you want me to stay tonight?" "No," Nia said softly. "You need rest." "I'll be fine." Wilson hesitated. "We'll keep 2 officers outside. You're safe here." When Wilson left, the silence filled the room again, deep and uneasy. Nia turned her gaze toward the sleeping baby. "You're safe now," she whispered, brushing a thumb along his tiny cheek. "I promise." But promises are fragile things. She dozed off in the chair, the baby in her arms. She dreamt of rain again, cold, endless rain and headlights fading into the dark. She saw her husband's face behind the glass of that SUV, the expression between guilt and surrender. Then, in the dream, the baby was crying, but the sound was distant, metallic, distorted. When she woke, it wasn't a dream anymore. The baby was crying for real. She blinked at the clock, 2:32 a.m. Her chest tightened. That same cursed hour. The power in the room was out. The faint glow from the window came from a single street light flickering outside. She stood up slowly, cradling the baby. "Sure, it's okay," she whispered, moving toward the light switch. It did nothing. Then she noticed it, movement in the shadows near the door. "Who's there?" she whispered. A low male voice answered, calm and steady. "Don't scream." Her breath froze. "Darius." He stepped out of the darkness, wearing a black hoodie and jeans. His eyes looked sunken, his face unshaven. He held nothing in his hands, at least not yet. "I didn't mean to scare you," he said. "I just needed to see you." Nia's voice trembled. "How did you get past the police?" "They weren't watching as closely as they think," he said, glancing toward the window. "I needed to talk to you before things get worse." She stepped back. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," he said quickly. "But please hear me out. My father, he's planning something big. He's trying to move the company assets overseas before the investigation freezes them. He wants to frame you, say you leaked internal documents. He says if the public turns on you, the board will force you out. Nia stared at him. And you expect me to believe you after everything? He swallowed hard. You have to. I didn't know what they were going to do that night. I swear it. I've been trying to fix it. Fix it? She said bitterly. You watched them drag me out of the house like I was trash. You didn't call the police. You didn't even come looking for me. His voice broke. I was scared, Nia. My parents, they've always controlled everything. They threatened to destroy me too if I didn't obey. I thought they'd only take you away for the night, not? He trailed off, guilt choking his words. Nia shook her head slowly. You believed them instead of believing me. I was wrong, he said. And now they're coming for you again. They've sent someone too. Before he could finish, a sharp crack rang out. The window shattered. Nia ducked instinctively, clutching the baby to her chest. Darius fell to the floor, glass raining over him. A faint red dot glowed briefly on the wall, then vanished. Wilson's voice blared suddenly from the intercom speaker. Nia, get down. The building's under attack. 2 officers burst into the room seconds later, guns drawn. Move. Get her out. Darius groaned, clutching his arm, blood soaking through his sleeve. Go, he gasped. They're not after me, they're after the baby. Nia's heart pounded as the officers grabbed her, ushering her toward the back corridor. The baby was wailing now, his small body trembling in her arms. As they reached the stairwell, another shot echoed from somewhere outside. The lights flickered violently, the entire building shaking as if from an explosion nearby. Wilson's voice came again over the radio. They breached the perimeter. We have multiple hostiles. Get Nia to the vehicle now. The officers pushed through the fire exit, leading her into the open night. The rain had returned, falling in silver sheets. A black SUV waited by the gate, engine running. Nia hesitated, glancing back toward the house. What about Darius? One of the officers shook his head. We'll get him out once you're safe. As they ran for the car, Nia looked down at her son's face, his dimple flickering faintly in the flashes of lightning, and whispered, Hold on, baby. Mama's here. They reached the SUV, but before she could get inside, headlights flared across the street. Another vehicle, identical, sped toward them. The officer shouted, Go! Go! Tires screeched. The sound of engines roared through the rain. And just as Nia's car lurched forward, a voice echoed through a megaphone from the other vehicle. Return the child and no one gets hurt. Nia's blood ran cold. Wilson's voice crackled over the radio again, panic breaking through her calm exterior. They found you. Nia turned to the driver, eyes wide with terror. Who are they? He met her gaze in the mirror. People who don't want the truth living long enough to testify. Lightning ripped across the sky, illuminating the road ahead, a convoy of black vehicles blocking the only exit. Wilson's voice came again, barely audible through the static. Nia, whatever happens, protect the baby. Do you hear me? Protect him. Nia clutched her child tighter, the rain pounding against the glass, her heart racing with one truth that burned hotter than fear. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for legacy. And before the night ended, someone would not leave that road alive. The rain came down harder, drumming like a warning on the car roof. The wipers fought against sheets of water as the convoy of black SUVs closed in, blocking both ends of the narrow road. The officer driving shouted into his radio, Unit Delta, we're boxed in. Repeat, boxed in at Old Bridge Road. Need backup now. Static crackled. No response. Wilson. Nia yelled. Wilson, can you hear us? The radio hissed, then went dead. The driver cursed under his breath. They're jamming the signal. Nia's pulse thundered in her ears. She cradled the baby tightly, his cries drowned out by the storm and engine noise. Her mind was racing, memories flashing like lightning, the landfill, the cameras, Darius bleeding on the floor. Everything was collapsing again, only this time there was no place left to run. The first SUV in front of them revved its engine, headlights glaring through the rain. Then the back one did the same, inching closer. They're trying to trap us, the officer said. Hang on. He slammed the gear into reverse, spinning the wheel. The car skidded sideways, tires screaming against wet asphalt. Nia's shoulder hit the door, the baby wailing in her arms. Hold on, the officer yelled again. He slammed the gas. The SUV fishtailed, barely squeezing through a narrow ditch by the side of the road. Mud splattered the windows as they shot into a side path, an old service route leading toward the river. In the mirror, two of the black vehicles followed. "They're not letting up," Nia cried. "Yeah, I noticed," the officer snapped, eyes darting between the rearview and the dark road ahead. The path twisted through thick trees, branches scraping the windows like claws. Every turn felt tighter, more dangerous. The engine growled under strain. Then up ahead the road split. The officer swerved right toward the riverbank. "Hang tight." "Where are we going?" Nia shouted. He didn't answer. They burst out of the trees onto a narrow stretch of gravel overlooking the dark river. The officer hit the brakes, stopping inches from the edge. The baby screamed from the sudden jolt. Behind them, headlights cut through the rain. The pursuers were close, too close. The officer jumped out, pulling his weapon. "Stay in the car, Ms. Albright." "No," Nia screamed. "You can't fight them alone." But he was already outside, aiming into the night. From the lead vehicle behind, a voice boomed through a megaphone, "Hand over the child and no one dies tonight." Nia froze. Her stomach turned cold. "The baby?" she whispered. "They're after him." She looked down at the child's face, so small, so unaware of the chaos around them. "No one's taking you," she whispered fiercely. Through the rain, she saw figures step out of the other vehicles. Men in dark raincoats, faces hidden, weapons gleaming under the lightning. One of them shouted, "You have 10 seconds." The officer fired a warning shot. "Stay back." But they didn't. Gunfire erupted, sharp, deafening. Glass shattered. The SUV's side mirror exploded. Nia ducked instinctively, crouching low over the baby. "Officer," she screamed. No answer. Only more gunshots. Then from the darkness, another car engine roared. Its headlights cut across the attackers, blinding them. Tires screeched. A familiar voice shouted through the storm, "Get in." "Nia, move." She looked up. It was Wilson driving another vehicle straight into the chaos. "Now." Wilson screamed again. Nia didn't think. She kicked open the SUV door and ran, clutching the baby, rain pelting her face like knives. A bullet whizzed past her ear. She didn't look back. She reached Wilson's car and dove inside, gasping for air. Wilson floored the accelerator before the door even shut. The car leapt forward, tires spitting mud. In the mirror, the attackers scrambled back to their vehicles, engines revving to pursue. "Wilson," Nia cried. "They're right behind us." "I see them." Wilson gritted her teeth. "Hold that baby tight." The chase tore through the muddy backroads, lightning flashing over the water. Wilson took every turn like she'd memorized the map, tires sliding, windshield wipers thrashing. "They're not stopping," Nia yelled. "They will," Wilson said. "They don't know what's waiting up ahead." "What do you mean?" Wilson's eyes flicked toward her. "I called in the city marshals before they cut comms. If my timing's right." Another turn, a straight stretch ahead leading to a bridge. "They'll be waiting right about." A burst of red and blue lights flashed from the far side of the bridge. Sirens wailed through the storm. Wilson's lips curved into a fierce grin. "Now." Gunfire erupted again, but this time from the other direction. The attackers' convoy skidded to a halt as law enforcement vehicles blocked the bridge. Officers in armored gear poured out, shouting commands. "Hands up. Weapons down." Wilson slammed the brakes, spinning the car sideways just before the checkpoint. Rainwater splashed across the road as the pursuers tried to reverse, but they were boxed in. Within seconds it was over. The men dropped their weapons one by one, forced to their knees under floodlights. Nia clutched her son tightly, every muscle trembling as adrenaline drained from her body. Wilson turned to her, breathing hard but steady. "You okay?" Nia nodded weakly. "I think so. The baby's fine." "Good," Wilson said, glancing toward the bridge. "Because we're about to end this for good." A black van pulled up near the blockade. The door opened and out stepped Officer Harris, soaked to the bone but alive. He was followed by 2 detectives and a man in a gray suit carrying a file folder. "Nia Albright," the suited man said, voice clear and firm. "I'm Deputy Prosecutor Henry Cole. We've been tracking your case since last night. The governor's office has ordered immediate seizure of all Kalu assets and a federal investigation into the attacks." Nia blinked, barely processing his words. "You mean, it's over?" He shook his head. "Not quite. We caught the hitmen, but whoever funded them is still out there. We believe the order came from offshore. Someone with deep money ties to Kalu Industries." Wilson frowned. "His mother. She's already in Nigeria." Cole nodded grimly. "And she's moving fast." Nia looked down at her son. The rain glistened on his small, peaceful face. She won't stop, she whispered. Not until she takes everything. Wilson put a hand on her shoulder. Then we take the fight to her. Nia lifted her head, eyes hard. Nigeria? Yes, Wilson said. If that's where she's running, that's where we'll finish this. Nia stared at the bridge lights reflecting on the river, the same river that once carried her mother's ashes years ago. Then I'm not hiding anymore, she said quietly. If she wants to erase me, she'll have to face me first. Wilson smiled faintly. That's the Albright blood talking. The prosecutor stepped closer. Are you sure about this, Ms. Albright? Once we move across borders, there's no turning back. Nia's grip tightened on her child. I've already been buried once, she said. This time I'm walking out of the dirt. Lightning split the sky behind her, illuminating her face, calm, fierce, unbroken. And as the storm raged on, one truth became clear. The war for the Albright legacy had crossed oceans. The next battle would be fought on the Kalu's home soil, where it all began. The rain in Lagos was different. It fell softer, warmer, almost deceitful, like it didn't know the blood and betrayal that had crossed the ocean to reach its soil. Nia stepped off the plane holding her child close, her eyes scanning the crowded tarmac through the heat haze. Her mother's old pendant, worn gold and shaped like a leaf, hung around her neck, gleaming faintly in the sun. Wilson followed close behind, her dark suit clinging in the humidity, a phone pressed to her ear. We've landed, she said quietly. Confirm ground team. And tell our contact the target moved 2 hours ago. She's not at the estate anymore. Where is she? Nia asked, adjusting her baby's hat to shield him from the light. Wilson lowered her phone. Rumor says she's gone to Eco-Atlantic. She has a meeting with her husband's lawyers and a few old political allies. She's desperate, Nia. They're trying to lock up funds before the sanctions freeze everything. Nia's expression hardened. Then that's where we'll find her. They got into a waiting SUV, courtesy of the Albright Initiative's Nigerian branch. Through the tinted windows, Lagos shimmered in chaos and beauty. Street vendors calling, yellow buses honking, the salty wind from the ocean sweeping in over the bridges. The driver, a stocky man named Chike, navigated through the noise like a veteran of the city's rhythm. You sure you want to go straight to her? He asked. That woman's protected by more money than the governor. I didn't come here to hide, Nia said. I came for answers. Chike nodded, merging into traffic. Wilson looked over at her. We'll do this carefully. No grand scenes. We expose her the right way, with evidence, not emotion. You're not just a victim anymore, Nia. You're the new chair of one of the biggest environmental networks on the continent. You have power now. Nia's lips pressed into a thin line. Then I'll use it. Eco-Atlantic was a city within a city, towers of glass and steel rising from reclaimed land, built for the rich and unreachable. It gleamed like a promise or a lie. When they arrived, Wilson's phone buzzed again. She's inside, she said, glancing up at the tallest tower. Top floor, room 904. The Kalu lawyers are already there. Nia adjusted her shawl and handed the baby to Chike. Stay with him. Don't open the doors for anyone but us. Chike gave a firm nod. No one touches that child, ma'am. Nia took one last look at her sleeping son, then turned to Wilson. Let's end this. The elevator ride was quiet except for the faint hum of Afrobeats playing in the lobby below. Wilson's reflection in the glass looked focused, sharp. Nia's looked older, stronger. When the doors opened, they stepped into a hallway lined with marble and gold trim. At the end stood a pair of security guards in suits. Wilson flashed her badge. Deputy Director Naomi Wilson, Albright Initiative. We're expected. The guards exchanged a wary look, then reluctantly opened the double doors. Inside, the room was cool and wide, with a panoramic view of the Atlantic glittering beyond the windows. At the table sat 4 men in suits, and at the head of the table, wearing a cream-colored lace wrapper and coral beads, was Mrs. Kalu. She looked up slowly, her expression unreadable. So, she said, voice dripping with disdain, the prodigal girl returns. Nia didn't flinch. She stepped forward, the sound of her heels echoing through the room. You left me for dead, she said. Now I've come to watch you answer for it. Mrs. Kalu laughed softly like the sound of silk tearing. Dead? You exaggerate. I gave you freedom, child. Freedom from a family you never understood. Freedom? Nia's voice rose. You dumped me in the middle of a trash yard at 2:30 a.m. like garbage. And for what? Because you were afraid I'd inherit something you couldn't control? The lawyers shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between them. Mrs. Kalu rose from her chair, her wrapper shimmering under the light. You know nothing of control, Nia. You were never built for this world. You think this is about inheritance? No. This is about legacy. The Kalu name built cities, factories, schools. And what did you bring to it? A name from another continent and a mother's foundation that leaks money like a broken tap. Wilson stepped forward. That foundation now controls 3 sanitation networks across West Africa. And it's your companies being investigated for dumping waste into illegal sites, including this very shoreline. Mrs. Kalu's smile thinned. Ah, so you came to humiliate me in front of strangers? No, Nia said, her tone steady. I came to end you with truth. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small tablet. The screen glowed to life with a video feed, grainy at first, then clear. It was the landfill footage. The night she was left to die. The lawyers gasped. Mrs. Kalu's face drained of color. This is being streamed live right now, Wilson said. From a secure server in the US. You can't delete it. You can't hide it. Every major network is watching. You wouldn't dare, Mrs. Kalu hissed. Oh, we already did, Nia said quietly. Mrs. Kalu's hands trembled. You think this will destroy me? Do you have any idea who protects me? Not anymore, Wilson said. The Senate revoked your political immunity this morning. Your accounts are frozen. Your husband's in custody. And Interpol has issued a warrant for your arrest. The room fell silent. Nia took a step closer. You took everything from me, my peace, my dignity, my name. But the same dirt you buried me in is the dirt that exposed you. You forgot one thing, Mrs. Kalu. Trash doesn't rot the truth. It preserves it. For the first time, Mrs. Kalu looked afraid. You think you've won? She whispered. You have no idea how deep this goes. You've only cut one head from a serpent that has many. Wilson turned to her. Then let them come. We'll be ready. Mrs. Kalu laughed once, a sharp, brittle sound. You don't understand the world you've stepped into, child. You can clean the surface, but filth always finds a way back. Then, with slow, deliberate calm, she reached into her wrapper pocket and pulled out her phone. I suggest you leave now, she said coldly. Because before the sun sets on this city, every man in this room will deny they ever saw you. And every law that protects you will vanish. Wilson's radio crackled. Naomi, this is Control, shots fired outside the tower. We've got multiple vehicles inbound. Nia's blood ran cold. Wilson turned to the lawyers. Everybody stay down. Glass shattered as bullets tore through the windows. Screams filled the air. Nia dove behind a marble pillar, shielding her baby in her arms. Wilson crouched beside her, gun drawn. Outside, chaos erupted, sirens shouting, the sound of tires screeching on wet pavement. Mrs. Kalu crouched behind the table, fury in her eyes. You see, Nia? She shouted over the gunfire. This is what legacy costs. Nia met her gaze, her voice trembling but strong. No, she said. This is what greed costs. Wilson grabbed her wrist. We need to move, now. Together, they ran through the shattered doorway into the hallway. Smoke filled the air. The baby was crying again, louder this time. The elevator was dead, lights flickering. They sprinted toward the emergency stairs as armed guards flooded the corridor. Down the back exit. Wilson shouted. The roar of chaos followed them down every step. The heat, the noise, the fear, it was all familiar now. But Nia wasn't the same woman who'd been dragged into the night months ago. She was no longer running from the dark. She was running through it, toward something brighter. When they reached the bottom, Wilson pushed open the emergency door. Sunlight and sirens collided outside as security forces stormed the complex. Chaik appeared by the car, waving frantically. Madam. This way. They ran. Behind them, the tower shuddered with another explosion. And as the city burned with headlines, sirens, and retribution, Nia climbed into the car, clutching her baby, whispering the same words her mother once told her under a thunderstorm. When they try to bury you, remember, seeds are buried too. Comment below what you do and tell us where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful African folktale stories that keep you on the edge till the very end. Lagos was on fire, not with flames but with headlines. Kalu Empire collapses in global scandal. Albright heiress exposes billion-dollar corruption ring. Woman left for dead returns to destroy her enemies. Every TV, radio, and phone buzzed with the same story. Crowds gathered outside Eco Atlantic's glass gates, chanting her name, Nia Albright. Nia Albright. But Nia wasn't celebrating. She sat in a small hospital room in Victoria Island, her baby asleep beside her, wrapped in a soft white blanket. A nurse adjusted the 4 on her arm. She'd inhaled too much smoke escaping the tower. Her body ached, but her mind refused to rest. Wilson stood by the window, phone pressed to her ear, voice low and urgent. Yes, confirm the arrest warrant. I don't care if she's on a yacht, don't let her leave Nigerian waters. She hung up and turned to Nia. Interpol sealed every exit. The mother can't run this time. But, she hesitated. They haven't found Darius. Nia's heart clenched. He's alive. Wilson nodded slowly. He was spotted leaving the tower right before the explosion. He's using a false passport. And he's not alone. Not alone. Your mother-in-law. He helped her escape the city. The words hit Nia like a slap. No. He wouldn't? She stopped herself. The look on Wilson's face said everything. They're heading toward the border, Wilson continued. If they cross into Benin, it'll take weeks to bring them back. Nia swung her legs off the bed. Then we stop them before they leave. Wilson's eyes widened. You're still recovering. I'm not waiting for another night like the one at the landfill, Nia said firmly. I'm ending this now. They don't get to vanish while I hide behind lawyers. Wilson exhaled slowly. All right. But we do this my way. By midnight they were on the road again. Wilson, Nia, 2 local officers and Chike at the wheel. The convoy moved through the long stretch of highway leading toward the Seme border. The moonlight glinted off the wet tarmac, and the air smelled of salt and tension. Nia sat in the back, her baby in a car seat beside her. He slept soundly, unaware of the storm swirling around his name. She touched his tiny hand, whispering, "This ends tonight." Wilson's radio crackled. Control to Unit 3, target vehicles confirmed, black Mercedes SUV and white Prado, crossing Lekki Toll at 2344. They're moving fast. Wilson grabbed the mic. Copy that. Maintain visual and don't engage until we intercept. Chike pressed harder on the gas. If they're running, they'll try to cross through the private docks by Badagry. That's where smugglers sneak out. Then that's where we cut them off, Wilson said. The minutes stretched like hours. Rain clouds gathered again, heavy and gray. Nia could feel the pressure building inside her chest, like the whole city was holding its breath. When they reached the docks, it was nearly dawn. The sea was restless, waves crashing against the concrete pier. Chike killed the headlights. There, he whispered. 2 SUVs were parked near the end of the dock. Men loaded crates into a speedboat. Wilson raised her binoculars. That's them. The Kalus are on that boat. Nia leaned forward. Through the mist, she saw them, Darius and his mother, standing beside a man in a tailored suit she didn't recognize. Darius was holding a briefcase, his face drawn and hollow. Who's that with them? Nia whispered. Wilson zoomed in. A broker. He handles offshore accounts. That briefcase probably holds the hard drives they stole from the company servers. So even after everything, they're still chasing money, Nia murmured. Wilson lowered the binoculars. People like that don't stop until they're stopped. She signaled to the officers. We move on my count. But before they could act, one of the dock workers spotted movement. Hey, someone's here. Gunfire exploded through the night. Down? Wilson shouted. Bullets ricocheted off the crates as Nia ducked behind a barrel, clutching the baby carrier to her chest. The officers returned fire. The noise was deafening, drowning out the roar of the ocean. Then, amid the chaos, Darius's voice cut through. Nia, don't shoot. Please. She looked up, heart pounding. Darius stood on the edge of the dock, hands raised. His mother screamed behind him, Leave her. Get on the boat. He turned to her. I can't, Mama. Now, she shrieked. But Darius didn't move. Rain soaked his face, mingling with tears. Nia, he said, voice breaking. I tried to stop her. I tried to make her turn back. Nia stepped out from cover, Wilson shouting, Nia, don't. She ignored her. Why, Darius? After everything, why help her run? Because she's still my mother, he said hoarsely. I thought I could make her surrender peacefully. But she doesn't listen. She'll never stop until she's destroyed everything, including me. Behind him, Mrs. Kalu climbed into the speedboat, screaming at the captain, Go! Go! Darius, she shouted. Get in this boat right now. He hesitated, eyes flicking between his wife and his mother. I can't, Mama, he said softly. Not anymore. She froze. What did you say? He took a step back from the dock's edge. I can't run from what we've done. Mrs. Kalu's voice rose into a wail. Ungrateful boy. You'd betray your own blood for that woman? Darius turned toward Nia, tears streaming down his face. No. I'm doing this for our blood. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive. Everything, every offshore transaction, every forged contract, it's all here. I copied it before we left. Wilson's eyes widened. Throw it here. He did. Wilson caught it midair. Darius. Mrs. Kalu screamed. You fool. The captain tried to pull her onto the boat, but she pushed him away, grabbing a pistol from one of the guards. If I can't win, no one will. She aimed at Nia. No. Darius shouted, lunging at her just as the gun went off. The shot echoed across the dock. For a moment, everything froze, the waves, the rain, the breath in every throat. Darius stumbled back, clutching his chest. Mama, he whispered. His knees buckled and he fell into the water. Mrs. Kalu screamed, dropping the gun. Darius. Darius. Nia ran forward, Wilson grabbing her arm, but she tore free. She dove into the churning water. The cold hit her like knives. She saw his body sinking, the red bloom spreading through the waves. She reached him, pulling with all her strength, gasping against the current. Stay with me, she screamed. You're not dying here. He coughed weakly, eyes fluttering open. Nia, the baby. He's safe, she sobbed. He's safe. He smiled faintly. Good. Then it's done. His eyes closed, his body going limp. No, she cried, shaking him. Darius, please. Wilson and the officers pulled her and Darius's lifeless body from the water. Mrs. Kalu's screams echoed from the dock as police swarmed her, wrenching her hands behind her back. The flash drive lay in Wilson's hand, small, wet, but intact. She looked down at Nia, soaked and sobbing, her baby crying from the car. It's over, Wilson whispered. He saved you in the end. But Nia could only stare at the waves, her tears lost in the rain. Because in that moment she realized something bitterly true. Justice always demands a price. And sometimes the cost is the last person you thought you could still forgive. The sun broke through the clouds the next morning, soft, golden, and almost cruel in its beauty. For the first time in months, Lagos was calm. No sirens. No explosions. No running. Only the sound of waves hitting the dock, gentle and steady, as if trying to wash away everything that had happened the night before. Nia sat by the shoreline, wrapped in a gray shawl. Her baby slept against her chest, breathing peacefully, unaware of the storm that had brought him into the world. His tiny fingers curled around her pendant, her mother's pendant, the one that had survived every trial, every night, every betrayal. Wilson stood a few meters away, talking quietly with Officer Harris, who had arrived from the States to escort them back home. They spoke in low voices, but Nia could still hear fragments of their conversation. Interpol confirmed, Harris said. Mrs. Kalu's under custody. She'll face charges for attempted murder, fraud, and international conspiracy. And the son? Wilson asked softly. Harris hesitated. The body's been recovered. They'll send it to the U.S. per Nia's request. Wilson glanced at Nia, her face shadowed with both sympathy and pride. He finally did the right thing. Yeah, Harris replied quietly. But too late for himself. They turned to leave her a moment alone. Nia looked out across the sea. The waves shimmered beneath the rising sun, golden light breaking across the water like glass. She whispered, You could have stayed, Darius. We could have started again. But the only reply was the wind. A seagull circled above, calling softly before disappearing into the bright sky. She took a deep breath, feeling the pain and peace mingling in her chest. Then slowly she began to speak, not to anyone there, but to the world that had watched her story unfold. People think pain destroys you, she said quietly. But sometimes, it teaches you who you are. They left me to die in a place where no one was supposed to look for me. A trash yard. A place for what the world throws away. But even trash can shine under light. She looked down at her son. You are that light. You are the reason I didn't give up. Her voice trembled, but she kept going. I thought revenge would heal me. But it didn't. Justice did. Not the kind that punishes, but the kind that exposes, that cleans, that rebuilds. My mother believed in that. And now, it's my turn. Wilson approached gently. The board is waiting, she said. They want you to address the press before we return to Houston. Are you sure you're ready? Nia nodded. I was born ready. I just didn't know it until now. The press conference was held at the Albright Initiative's Lagos headquarters. Rows of reporters filled the hall, cameras flashing, microphones crowding the podium. Nia stepped onto the stage, dressed in a simple white gown, pure, calm, defiant. Wilson stood beside her, her presence like armor. The room fell silent. Nia took a breath, glanced at her baby asleep in the bassinet beside her, and began to speak. "My name is Nia Albright," she said, voice steady. "And this is my story." She told them everything: how her husband's parents betrayed her, how she was dumped in the landfill, how the world watched her fight for her life and win. She spoke of her mother's legacy, of corruption hidden behind power, of the cost of silence. When she finished, she held up the small flash drive, the same one Darius had given her. "This," she said, "contains proof that billions meant for Africa's clean water projects were stolen and hidden overseas. My husband died to bring it back. Today, I'm donating it to the International Task Force investigating corporate crimes across borders." The crowd erupted in applause, flashes exploding like fireworks. Wilson leaned over, whispering, "You just changed the game, Nia." But Nia shook her head. "No. We just started it." Weeks later, back in Houston, the world had moved on, but not without her name. The Albright Initiative expanded under her leadership, rebuilding projects the Kalus had destroyed. Scholarships, clinics, and clean water plants sprang up across Nigeria and the U.S., all bearing one name: the Darius Foundation for Hope. Because even in betrayal, she chose to honor the part of him that tried to make things right. In her quiet moments, she'd still hear his voice in the waves, soft, broken, but grateful. One evening, she stood by her window watching the sunset. Her son, now healthy and smiling, sat on the carpet playing with his toys. Wilson entered the room holding 2 mugs of tea. "The board approved the new project name," she said. "You sure about it?" Nia smiled faintly. "Completely." She turned the framed plaque on her desk so Wilson could see. Read, "Project 230, because light belongs even to the darkest hour." Wilson's eyes softened. "You turned the worst moment of your life into a symbol." "That's what my mother taught me," Nia said. "You can't choose what breaks you, but you can choose what you build from the pieces." The baby gurgled and reached out his tiny hand toward the setting sun. Nia lifted him, kissing his forehead. "You're my new beginning," she whispered. Outside, the sky burned gold and red over the city, a promise written in light. And as the credits of her pain faded, Nia Albright finally stepped into peace, not as a victim, not as a survivor, but as a legacy reborn. What lesson do you take from Nia's journey? Do you believe forgiveness brings healing, or should betrayal always meet justice? Comment your thoughts below and tell us where you're watching from. And if Nia's story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful African folktale stories that prove light always wins over darkness.